How's it going, Yankee fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Garcia. And today we want to discuss Juan Soto, of course. We discussed him a couple days ago and talking about what it would take the Yankees to actually acquire a player as lucrative as Juan Soto. And it would require probably 4 or 5 of the top prospects in our farm system. At least 3 of them. You're talking Volpe, Peraza, Waldichuk, or Dominguez, whatever package deal you want to look at. It's going to require a haul. Gerrit Cole and Aaron Judge from the Home Run Derby All-Star game yesterday really just kind of came out and said, we want him in the Bronx and we do not want him in the AL East. So I'll give you some of those quotes from them and kind of what they had to say and just in terms of getting Soto to the Bronx instead of letting him go to an AL East rival, which I imagine the Yankees do not want to be playing him if he's in Toronto or if he's in Boston or whatever it might be. But I'm not sure if they have the necessary farm systems to even acquire him. There's only a handful of teams that may have the prospects actually capable of landing a guy that talented. But Cole had some pretty interesting things to say about Soto in terms of, he took an outside fastball on a 2-strike count, 445 feet the opposite way. You don't find guys that can do that very often. He's an unbelievable talent. We'll kind of want to discuss that, break that down, and, just give our insights into what the potential of the possibility of it even happening in the next couple of weeks here is. But before we dive into it, Ryan, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. The All-Star break, it's a nice little refresher after a strong end of the series against Boston. But Cole and Judge's comments, regarding regarding Juan Soto, this is a generational talent right here. This is the best player we've ever seen on the trade market, openly available in their prime, not in a big contract. When's the last time we've seen a player like this? You think A-Rod, right? But A-Rod was already on that big deal, so the prospect haul wasn't going to be as great. This is a player who's 23 years old, right? You extend him for 15 years, you will have him, and his contract will expire when he's 38, right? He'll still be, not to the point in which he's unplayable. With the plate discipline, you imagine he'll at least be a great DH at that age. So this is an incredible, this isn't a player that you're trying to get, if the Nationals, you're getting rid of to shed salary, you're getting rid of because you have to. This is a player if you trade for them, you're basically giving the Nationals the core for the next championship, because that's the level of prospects you'll have to trade and how many. But when it comes to acquiring Juan Soto, at this point, it's not even just about, hey, you dream of the lineup with Soto. It's at this point preventing another team from getting Juan Soto. If you think of the Los Angeles Dodgers with a guy like Juan Soto, that's not at all a matchup you're not going to be able to win that matchup. It'll be very difficult, extremely difficult, unbelievably difficult. You're at a disadvantage that you may not be able to overcome, even if you get a Luis Castillo. It's just not enough. You kind of hope and pray that if he's not a Yankee, he goes to a team that really isn't as great as the Dodgers. You think a team like maybe the Cardinals, where, they get him, but maybe they're still not the best team in the National League, so you kind of have a chance to not play them. You can't really sit when you're Judge and Cole. I think they kind of share the same mindset that every Yankee fan has, where it's like, this is Juan Soto. This is the, best hitter in baseball. Arguably, this is the guy. He's just so great. He's so unbelievable. It's hard to really put into words how big of an effect he has on the market and the World Series landscape. Whoever wins the World Series, Soto is likely going to have Soto on their team. This might be a World Series right there on the market. And it just matters. It's not even a matter of what you're willing to give up. It's a matter of how the Nationals view the prospects. I think every team is willing to trade a lot for him, but how do the Nationals view each package? So I'm glad Judge and Cole both openly endorse it, because I know there's some concerns that maybe Judge wouldn't be happy with it because, he's a free agent and then you'd have to extend Soto. It shows that that's a good thing. I'm happy about that, because it means that if Soto does come here, there's no conflict with Judge or anything, and you'll just worry about that in the offseason. But yeah, Soto, how else can you describe it other than this is a great player, and it would change the Yankees' outlook for now and for the future with Soto.
Yeah, like you said before, he's 23 years old. And to put it in some context, the Yankees are about to sign Aaron Judge, or at least looking to try and sign Aaron Judge to an extension worth $35+ million a year at 30 years old, right? You can make a really easy argument that Soto has so much more value than Judge right now, because he has 7 years left of that prime baseball before he even turns 30 years old. Right? That value right there. The Nationals, if they offered him 32 million a year, I think he'd probably take it, but they're only offering him 29.5. or 29.3, 440 million. So if, the Yankees wanted to go and trade for Soto and then extend him immediately and then let Judge walk, you still probably might have a long-term better player if there was to go that direction. But do you think it's possible that if they traded for Soto that they would be able to sign both of them? Because I know that's about $1 billion invested in two players, but you're talking about, if you're Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman, you're looking at Soto, Judge, and Stanton. You're looking at arguably one of the best outfields in the history of the game, in terms of just a slugging prowess. And even defensive metrics, they're all pretty solid defenders. I mean, obviously Aaron Judge is a great defender. So, what is your perspective on that in terms of, could they manage to sign both of them? And do you think Steinbrenner would be willing to bite that?
I doubt that Steinbrenner is willing to invest that much long-term money, considering how much long-term money is already invested in Cole and Stanton. So I'm not sure if Judge and Soto both could be signed by the Yankees. I think he signed Soto. I think you're gonna have to bite the bullet of maybe letting go of an Aaron Judge, but the replacement would be there. I mean, the way I see it is, if you trade for Soto, that's a direct excuse for Hal and Cashman to no longer be forced to have to sign Judge. And I think every fan would agree they'd be willing to sacrifice that for a World Series with Soto, Judge, and Stanton. They'd be willing to, run the high risk of Judge leaving, because again, this is a World Series move. And if you invest so much into Soto prospect wise, it's to keep him. It's not to have him for 2.5 years and have him leave, right? Because then you kind of lose the deal there. You mentioned age, right? One thing I find interesting, I believe you mentioned Waldichuk as someone that we would see in that package. Waldichuk is over 10 months older than Juan Soto, right? Like, this isn't. I want people to understand. I know a lot of people, when we talked about Soto, Nick and I, they were like, well, why would you invest so much into one player? Well, because, their 90th, not the 99th percentile outcome for a lot of these guys, their best outcome, everything goes perfectly well, is maybe they're a little bit worse than Juan Soto at best, right? Maybe one of them, maybe Volpe has Soto-like WAR value at his absolute best outcome, but that's probably the only guy who has that. Peraza's never going to be a 7-win player consistently or a 6-win player consistently. The bat isn't just that; it just isn't that great. It's good, it's not great, right? He'll be an average to slightly above average hitter with good defense. You think Ken Waldichuk? Maybe, but he's a pitcher. Kind of hard to project WAR for pitchers, right? 6 and 7-win pitchers, they're like 1 or 2 a year. Unless he's Gerrit Cole or Corbin Burns or Shane McClanahan or Jacob deGrom, he may not be. He's probably not going to get to that Soto level. Dominguez, right? Any of these guys that you name, right? It's hard to be a 6 to 7-win player. It's hard to get a guy that becomes the best player in baseball. Even these top prospects, Juan Franco, Julio Rodriguez, Ronald Acuna Jr., right? These are like guys who are incredible prospects. Are they the best players in baseball, right? Are they the best player in baseball right now? Absolutely not. It's not them. It's probably Juan Soto, right? So when it comes down to it, you're trading prospects, yes. And there's a certain extent in which you may actually lose WAR value in comparison to when you get Soto, but you kind of have to bite that bullet, because a lot of these guys won't pan out and give you 7 WAR, year in, year out, year in, year out. A lot of these guys may peak at a 4 WAR and then kind of be mediocre the rest of the way. Or maybe one of them hit, but you're willing to take that risk because this is a secured 100% superstar 6 to 7-win player, not even in his prime yet, for the next however long you may have him. That's 15 years of one of the best hitters we'll ever see. So you can't give me a package I'd say no, that's much to. I really can't.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're spot on. This year already he has 20 homers. He's on pace to break that record. I found this really interesting. I want to get your perspective on this. So he has 20 homers this year, 13.7% strikeout, 20% walk rate. I mean, that is just absurd. Like, the Yankees, you're getting the slugger of your dreams that also gets on base at a 40.5% clip, 46.5% last year. I mean, that's just like unheard of for a guy that is that effective. But here's an interesting metric that I wanted to run by you, right? So it's hard hit metrics, 45.3% hard hit rate, 12.8% barrel rate. His launch angle, I mean, how do you hit 20 homers at the All-Star break when your launch angle is only 7.6 degrees, right? That's not that much. You're not getting that much lift. His fly ball rate is sitting at let's see here. His fly ball rate is at 37.4% with a 20.8% home run to fly ball ratio. If you got his fly ball rate up to like 45, 50% and his home run to fly ball ratio around like 30%, 25%, he's going to absolutely crush in that short right porch. The thing is, he's not only a guy that's going to pull homers. He's like Stanton, where he can slap homers opposite field and get them over the fence 450 feet. You know what I mean? Like this is not a normal player, like you said. And when you're talking about prospects in the future, you can't combine statistics for them, right? Like every player's has their individual stats, individual numbers. You can't combine them and say, oh, like if all these players, if you combine them, they had better stats than Juan Soto. It doesn't work that way, right? Because one guy might be really good and one guy might be terrible. So, Soto is just an unbelievable baseball player. And this is what Gerrit Cole had to say about him, essentially. Or I'll go with Aaron Judge first. He says he's going to help whatever team he goes to win a lot of games. I would hate to see him go to a team that we got to play down the stretch. It would be fun to see him in New York or wherever he wants to be. So clearly, Judge is like, I do not want to play him in the future. I don't want him to be on a team that we're going to have to play in the playoffs, because obviously that's very difficult. And then when it comes to Gerrit Cole, he had some really interesting and actually a detailed kind of story to speak about him. So Gerrit Cole actually faced off against him when he was with Houston back, I think, in 2019, 2020. And he said he backsided a 2-strike fastball about 445 feet the opposite way. It was on the outside corner. That makes him pretty special. And then the discipline, his awareness of the strike zone, at least in that series, was on par with some of the Matt Carpenter you've been seeing lately. So those two traits, massive power and great plate discipline. When you have the robo-umps coming in the future, you're not going to get him outside of the strike zone. It's going to make him even better. And I think the Yankees also have to acknowledge that, like the robo-umps, like the strike zone, there's not going to be that error. That error for margin is so already razor thin for Soto. You add that into the mix, is going to make him even better in just terms of knowing where the strike zone is and taking advantage of those. And Cole went on to say, where I really don't want him to go, I don't want him to go to Boston. But if he's going to go, I want him to come to us. He's going to be a generational great. So whatever organization gets him, if they do indeed trade him, is going to be in a good spot if they keep him for the next 10 years. So Cole, obviously has amazing things to say about Soto. If you're the Yankees and you're listening to what Cole is saying, you're definitely listening. And I think that you're kind of right in the sense that, like, there is no package that you could really say no to. I guess you're probably looking, like, if you had to come up with a package right now, what do you think it would be? It probably would be Volpe, Peraza. You're looking at Dominguez. You're looking at maybe Austin Wells. I don't even know. Like, I honestly can't even put together a package that makes sense in my head.
For me, I think it starts with your top 5 guys or your top 4 guys, whatever it may be. And then you start looking to your, your 8 through 15 guys and you mop up at least like 3 of them, right? That's what your initial offer is, by the way. That probably doesn't even get it done. It's just so hard to think here because, like, what do they want? Do they want major league talent? Do they want minor league guys? Do they want guys who are a couple years away? Do they want guys who are MLB ready but are starting out, are still in AAA? Like, what do they want, right? We don't know. It's hard. It's so hard to make a deal because we don't know how there's so much value you have to trade. So we don't really know what the Nationals are. That's how they value Dominguez, right? Like, maybe Dominguez isn't that valuable to them. Maybe to them, it's like, he's not going to be here for 3-4 years. Why do I want him? I want, I can have ready in 2 years to start competing, right? It's difficult. It's difficult really to put together a package because the Nationals, what are we going to say? That they're going to be competitive in 2 years? They're going to be competitive in 4 years? They're trading a 23-year-old superstar. This is basically like trading a prospect who's, right? Like, he's 23. He's young. We don't know the direction of their franchise is just, they're in a really, really weird, odd spot because they shouldn't be selling Soto. They should not. That should not be the wave. That should not be the move. But they couldn't get, Soto doesn't want to stay there, or, they couldn't make a good enough offer in Soto's eyes. But I don't know, because I would say like Clark Schmidt would be a guy I would think about because MLB ready. But again, do they want MLB ready guys where in 4 years they're going to be starting to creep up towards free agency? By the time you start getting good, who knows?
Yeah, man, it's really impossible to tell what they're going to want. I think it might just be trying to put pressure on him. And we're going to kind of see how that unfolds. Maybe they increase the offer enough to get him to sign it. But he's going to be, like, if you think about the progress of the MLB and just everything and the increased financial growth, you're looking at a player that's going to be, if he signs a 10-year contract at $31 million per season, he'd be doing himself a disservice. The fact that Aaron Judge is about to sign a deal 7-10 whatever amount of time, 7 or 10 years for $35+ million a year, Juan Soto is going to be worth a lot more than that if he continues at this pace, especially since he's getting on base at over 40% every single year. Even had, I think in 2020, he was on base almost 50% during the COVID abbreviated season. So interesting kind of situation here, guys. Obviously, Judge and Gerrit Cole would love to have him in the Bronx. I'm sure the Yankees would be willing to sacrifice a lot to get him. He is a perfect mold for what they look for. He is everything that they want in a player. The question is, are they willing to mortgage their future on it and potentially risk not having their future shortstop or their future this or their future that, and then letting Aaron Judge go, and they got to sign a big contract. They got to sign a big contract, because then you look at it like this. They could keep Aaron Judge and be very good with Aaron Judge for the next 4 or 5 years before eventually his body starts to degrade, and keep all of their prospects, or you trade all of your prospects for Soto, have a comparably to Judge, it's I think that's really the argument, though, Ryan. Like, that's the argument you have to make. If they're going to let one of those guys, because they're, like you said, they're not going to sign Soto and Judge, so they're probably going to let Judge walk. How much better is Soto? That much better than Judge? Let's say over the next 5 years, is Soto that much better than Judge that he's worth mortgaging your entire farm system on? I think that's really the argument we have to make.
I think, honestly, so the way I see it is I'm huge on Juan Soto, right? I think Juan Soto is the best player in baseball. I do think that. And the reason I think that is because he's got, ridiculous plate discipline. His power tools is really good. Again, the plate discipline, that's the big thing here. He walks way more than he strikes out, right? He's going to be a 400 on base guy easily, any single year. What Judge is doing right now offensively is Juan Soto's just MO. That's what he does, not power wise, but in terms of overall, OPS plus looking at it from an OPS plus kind of perspective, including on base and slugging here. That's Soto's MO. That's what he does every single year. The defense is a little bit concerning because he's gotten a lot worse defensively. But I think that you're thinking of it this year and then long term. Long term, you'd rather have Soto than Judge, and you'd rather have Soto for the next 15 years than Judge for the next 7 years, just based on age and how much value they're going to give you over that time period. But you're right. Are you willing to mortgage your entire future? Right. Again, I think this is more of a matter of just protecting yourself from Soto going somewhere where he can kill you. That's really how I see it. I would want the Yankees to protect themselves from that happening. If Soto was, not a threat to go to a team like the Dodgers, I really wouldn't care as much, right? Like when Scherzer was traded, it was really the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants. And as much as it hurt when he went to the Dodgers, because damn, we're screwed. That didn't really necessarily. Scherzer isn't necessarily Soto in terms of individual value, and you still feel good about, your chances in a 7-game series. But with Soto, it just changes everything, right? So, I want the Yankees to protect themselves from having to face a Juan Soto on an elite team. And if Soto just doesn't get dealt at the deadline, I'm cool with that too. Like my ideal outcomes is he becomes a Yankee or he doesn't get dealt until the offseason. So, I just don't want this year's team to have to run into a team that just forms a super team because they randomly get Juan Soto. I need that outcome to be avoided. So I'd be willing to pay the price simply to avoid it.
Yeah, guys, I'd love to hear your opinions on this below in the YouTube comments. Let us know what you think about Soto. If you're willing to mortgage the future, if you think it's possible they sign Judge and Soto to both long-term extensions. I mean, again, you have to think about it this way. Judge obviously needs an extension now, whereas Soto still has until 2025 and still his service time expires. So you do have 3 years there of elite play, and maybe you look to trade Soto. You know what I mean? Maybe you're like, we'll trade it for him now and try and recoup some of our prospects. Or maybe you trade Judge in the middle of his contract. There's so many things that could happen. The world is our oyster when you're the Yankees and you don't really know what to do with all of these prospects, especially because not all of them are going to pan out. So maybe you want to leverage that and stop prospect hugging. A lot of different directions we can go, but love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.